Yo, what is going on, everyone? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Bing, bing. Nope, this isn't working tonight. Awesome. How about we take that off? Nope, doesn't work. All good start, guys. Nope, yep, bingo. All right, wow. Wow, okay. That's the worst that happens tonight? Then great. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the end of the year. If you are watching this stream, you know who I am. My name is Seth Miranda, last ex-witness on all social. I'm a pro photographer here in New York. I do a lot of gear videos for a lot of other channels. And, gear is always fun to talk about, so why not? What is going on, Kathy, 80, Vagar? What's going on, buddy? King Garcia, welcome. And King Garcia, I just want to say thanks for being so active on the Adorama channel as well. I see it popped up ever since the Comic-Con video. And if you haven't seen the Comic-Con video on this channel, go check it out. King Garcia is actually in it. He talks about his setup and what it's like being part of that, culture within our subculture, okay? Yeah, if you guys get the like button, we're going to get into this. So last year, I did the gear prediction video just kind of for fun. And yeah, it is just for fun. And full disclosure, while I'm under NDAs and stuff like that, I don't know anything. For next year, I don't know anything. So this is just for fun. This is just me hanging out with you guys and just talking some trash about the game, right? Because that's what's fun about it. We get to see where the brands are going, the way they think, what they've done to make predictions of where they're going to go, stuff like that. And you probably heard a lot of things I had to say in the most important spec video that I did, where it's really the brand philosophy. Well, that's really what happens with these predictions as well, because you kind of go by how a brand has acted over the year. I'm sorry, I'm like settling in right now. I had a horrible, horrible day. I spent 3 hours in the rain trying to get to Queens for an appointment, and it was a nightmare. So I'm a little like raw, and also my home setup is jacked up. I haven't used it in a while or at all, and I guess things just aren't working anymore. So that's what it is. I have a little video sync mismatch. Am I out of sync for you guys? Let me know. Oh, you know what? That does make sense, actually. Hang on. Are you... let me see. Hang on a second. Huge audio delay. See? Can't even get this off the ground. 1 second, guys. I know exactly what the problem is. Okay, that should have fixed it. Hopefully that's okay. Can never do a live stream, guys. Can never do a live stream. Am I in sync now? Should be okay now. Oh, man, I can't stand it when this happens. Anyway. All right, cool. Yeah, so I had a bunch of problems setting this up, and one of the things I did to correct it, I didn't do all of the thing to correct it, so there's that. Anyway, all right, sorry guys. Well, these are live streams, and that's what happens, right? So we deal with it. Okay, so like I was saying, this is just for fun. While I'm under NDAs and all that kind of stuff, I don't know anything. I do not have any preconceived knowledge. This is just for fun. This is just a bunch of nerds hanging out, figuring things out based on what we know and the way brands act, and some wishing, right? Some stuff that we want to see happen out there in the industry. So part of this is going to be, one, checking out what I said for the gear in 2023 this year. Two, what I think is going to happen for 2024, but also mixed in with what I would like to see happen from the brands, even if I know in my core it won't ever happen, right? Like, kind of wish listy stuff, or things I would advise brands to do if I had any say in anything, even though I'm just a punk with a camera, let's be honest, right? Is there a nerd t-shirt? We mean, anyone? No. So actually my online store is gone, kaputs. No more merch, guys. It was costing me quite a bit of money per month, and it wasn't making any money. So I was just like, as fun as it is to have something that's ours, I just couldn't sustain it. Things cost money, so that's what it is. Anyway, if you guys are watching, I apologize for the audio in the beginning. Let me know where you're from. Let me know what you shoot, and we'll get going into this. So I took last year's live stream, which was like 2 and a half hours, I think, and I cut out each brand and what I did for predictions, so we don't have to watch the whole thing back in real time and skip through it all weird and awkward like. So I cut out, let me see, I have a video for Nikon, Canon, Fuji, Lumix, Sony, and I even did something for OM, which was like 2 minutes, but I don't know what to say about OM anymore. If you don't know OM, that's Olympus. All right. You guys want to get into these predictions, let me know. Hit ready in the chat if you guys are down for this. And I guess I'll start off with, let's see. Oh, wow. We got Nikon Z7 II, Sony guy from Tampa, Z9 Z6 II guy from Quebec City. Fuji needs some autofocus updates. I'll get into Fuji. I think I gotta tell you, I like the way Fuji does things. You know, I'm just a fan. All right, but look, got Nikon Z9 here. I got my Fuji GFX 100S right here. Bada bing. Oh, look at that thing. God, I love the image out of that thing. I got multiple brands going on here, so I'm not going to be. This isn't about a bias or anything like that. All right, let's go into this. Canon R3 from Toronto, a nice $6,000 throw into the Canon system. How you liking it so far? It's a cool camera. It is. I don't think I really needed that eye tracking autofocus thing they were doing, where you look and it focuses there. But I'm gonna get it. Sorry about the mic, guys. I literally just mounted this thing again. You have no idea how many times I'm like tearing this setup apart just to make something else happen. Then I throw the pieces back on this desk and I'm like, I'll figure it out next time I'm going live. Well, now this is the next time I'm going live. All right, let's start off with Nikon, because I think that's the longest prediction video that I have. Let me just really quickly pull it up. Number one. All right, let's see if I can do this without making this a complete mess. I'm going to mute my mic while we're playing the video so there's no double audio, and we'll go into what I think is going to happen, all right? Here we go. Number one, let's see what I said for 2023 when it comes to Nikon. Number one, I'm going to get it out of the gate right here. I think we're absolutely 100% within the first quarter of next year. I think you're going to see a Nikon Z8. I think the Z8 was held back for various reasons. Might be a supply issue, but I think it's also, if you look at the releases that just happened, and I mean, we had a lot of them. We had a slew of Fujis. All right, so I was half right. The Z8 did come out. It just didn't come out in the first quarter. And I still agree with past Seth there, because I do think that was a fair assessment. I think it was overdue. We all were expecting it, and somehow it didn't show up. But hey, we did end up getting a Z8, right? So let's see what else I had to say about this. That came out, the XT5, XH2S, XH2. We had the Canon R6 Mark II. We had the OM5. We had the A7R5 from Sony. See how I remember all these names? It's kind of nuts. But they all kind of collided into each other a bit. And it's at a time where there's not a lot of money flying around the world. It's still hard to get stock and parts and things like that. And it might not have been the best time on earth. I think Nikon's Z8 is definitely going to come out of the gate within the first quarter, not the first half. I'm saying the first quarter of next year. I think it's going to come out. All right, I screwed up that one. It wasn't in the first half. It was actually the beginning of the second half. So I was close, right? I was a little in the pocket. Let's go back. What is that camera going to be? I think it's strongly that it's going to be basically a stack sensor high res. I think we're looking at a Z9 with a more affordable price point and a smaller form factor. I'm basically saying this Z9, no grip, and a bunch of money shaved off that price tag. What? Called it right there. Bang, bang. And you know what's crazy is I'm going to end up buying a Z8 this week, I think. I need a secondary camera. I need a backup camera. A Z9 pair with a GFX. They don't match, so it doesn't really work out for me too well. The Z6 II is nice and all, and I was going to put the Z6 III as my secondary camera, but I kind of like the idea of the Z8. I'll go into that a little later. If you guys want me to talk about why I'm going into the Z8, I'll do it, but let's keep going with this. Doesn't make sense to me is the Z7, Z8, Z9 scenario where you have 3 high-res bodies, and what's the difference? Well, the Z7 is like the budget version because it's not stacked. The Z8 is the performance of the Z9, but in a smaller body without the grip. Maybe the battery life isn't as good. Probably won't be as good, obviously, because it's gonna be a smaller battery. But I think it's basically them using all this crazy tech that they've got going on, especially the no mechanical shutter. You know, they look like they're looking to press that. It saves them money and time and production line issues of a mechanical shutter. That's a big deal. And as a consumer, you don't have to worry about life on that mechanical shutter. You just kind of have a camera that doesn't have like mileage on it a little bit, kind of in a way. All right, I spiel too long. Sorry about that. Let's see what else I got to say about this. Sort of. Don't quote me on that. The other thing I think that's going to happen with Nikon is we're going to see the roadmap, the lens roadmap, kind of really flesh out and be solidified a little bit here. By the way, watching this back, you hear my buzzer going off. So for that whole live stream, someone was downstairs hammering on my buzzer, trying to deliver an Amazon package to another apartment. A lot of fun doing live streams like that, by the way. I think they finally got the glass coming out. I think that it's going to come... I think it's basically going to come into a place where all the glass that people are crying for, you know, the 85 1.2, the 200 to 600, I think might possibly pop out of the factory. That's two lenses I called, the 85 1.2, which I did the video for, and the 200 to 600. I didn't get right because it was actually a 180 to 600, but still, I said it was coming. It came out next year. I think we're going to see the really clean glass, the 1.2s, the 1.8s. Wow, you got to be kidding me. As far as the rest of the year for Nikon, I think you are absolutely finally going to see a full frame ZF. The reason I think this is, like, I don't call it the ZFC because I think the ZFC is going to be basically the crop sensor, and the ZF is going to be the full frame version. I think you're going to see because, one, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so I called the full frame ZF. Let's see if I got right what it actually was. It's not that hard to put out. They're either going to make it a retro-looking Z5, basically how the ZFC is a Z50 in a different chassis with the command dials and stuff like that. Okay, so I totally got that wrong. I thought the ZF was the full-frame retro was going to be basically a dialed-back body being sold on a pure gimmick. So I totally got that part wrong. I thought it was going to be a Z5 in a retro body, making it very low cost for them to produce, but still be able to sell it on the gimmick. But they kind of went overboard, right? They kind of gave us like a Z8-ish kind of Z6 II mix in there, kind of. So I was wrong on that, but I was right that they put it out. So that's pretty good, no? Right? I'll take the W on that. I think it's either going to be a Z5 or a dialed back Z6 II. And the reason I think that is because I think they really have to hit a price point that's affordable for a more of a mass market. The ZFC had to hit a market that was beyond just Nikon nerds, right? It had to go into a market of people that wanted a stylish camera that could vlog, that could look cool, that could fit in with the rest of this film renaissance that's going on for a certain aesthetic, for a certain type of person, not necessarily. Okay, I stand by all that. The ZFC was absolutely geared towards people that weren't like us, photo nerds. They were just people that wanted a cool camera. And I think I would still defend past Seth thinking the way he thought, because it totally makes sense. We kind of got more than we bargained for with the ZF. Let's see if I wonder if I said anything about the Gen 3 though. Did I think a Z6 III and Z7 III were coming? That's what I'm wondering about. Necessarily a photographer. So they're not looking to buy into the full-on Z system. They are looking to just get that camera. So I think the ZF isn't going to be something that a pro is going to buy for their primary camera or even a B camera. I think it's the fun camera, right? That you're getting it for like the aesthetic of having like that older Nikon analog feel, the flat body, the stylized version of it. And I think they have to hit a price point that's easy enough for that type of person to be like, oh, I could do that. I'll go. And I do think they hit the price point. So $2,000 for what that ZF felt like when I was shooting it, I absolutely think they kind of nailed the price point for it. But the ZF coming out at $2,000 now makes me definitely feel that the Z6 III is going to be like around a $2,500 camera. The question is, what are the upgrades going to be in the Z6 III that gets us to that price point? I'm going to talk on that in a little bit after we get through this clip for it. In fact, the ZFC, I'm not even joking. I have 3 people, all that work at salons. They've never even bought a camera. They've been using their phone. All of a sudden want the ZFC. One, only because it comes in teal. One, because it looks like a film camera. And the other one, because they said, well, I want to elevate my my social game, and this camera is cute. So the girl who bought the ZFC because it's teal was actually my model for the ZF video. If you go back and watch the ZF video, the girl with all the tattoos and everything, that was the girl who owns a few salons, very talented hairstylist, and she bought the ZFC purely because she liked the way it looked, so that she could take pictures of her client's hair. So that's kind of funny. I wonder if that was subconsciously in my head when I asked her to model for that video. I don't know. By the way, let me know if the chat, guys, is this boring? Should I just like skip this whole idea of looking back and just go right into predictions? Let me know what you think. I'm not even joking. That's literally what these girls have said to me. And they're very high professional in their own right, in their own craft. So these are the people we're supposed to reach, you know? And if we hit a ZF, Nikon's going to print money with it. I think a full frame version of that retro feeling camera will just print money for Nikon. It doesn't have to be the most high performing camera out there, but it does have to like nail that market. Later on in the year, I would hope we see Gen 3. Nikon seems to drop things around October. I would like to see a Z6 III and a Z7 III with the XP 7 processor, the Z9 processor in it, and I was totally wrong about the Z6 III and Gen 3 coming out last year. That sucks because I bet you I was kind of hoping that it would have come out so that we could have like a more fulfilled system, because I feel that Nikon has a massive gap in the mid-range. That said, I do think the 6 III, and I don't know about the 7 III, but I do think the 6 III is absolutely coming, not just this year, but I'm going to give it my Z8 prediction of last year. I think it's coming first quarter of this year. The reason I think that is the ZF is like the Z6 2.5, right? It kind of gives us what we're looking for in a Z6 III, minus a few things. Like I would have liked to have seen, you know, full-on dual card slots and like some other stuff. And obviously the gimmick of the body being very retro and the style of it is different than what a Z6 III is going to be, which is more of a prosumer type body. This is what I'm hoping happens. I'm saying right now, Z6 III, first quarter, if not first half, just to play it safe. But I don't know if we're actually going to see a twin body release. I don't know if we're actually going to see a Z7 III. And I'm going to say why after we get through this. Basically, bring them into the mid-range battle that's going on right now. What I will say is that Nikon has the lowest price point of like $1,800 for a Z6 II, and that's cool. All right, so that's a good question. 80, is that how I'm saying it? 80? Would a Z7 III even make sense given there's a Z8? Yes, and the reason it would make sense might not be the most popular reason, but you have to realize there's still a market for higher res, but not $4,000 high res. So you have a Z9 stack sensor, full on beast mode, Z8 dialed down on a few things, but still the same performance and capability of a Z9, just smaller body, couple less buttons, a few less ports and things like that. And you get that at $4,000. Now you throw in a Z7 III that has a mechanical shutter in it, not stacked. You're talking about a higher res camera for south of $3,500. It still has a market. I just don't think it's a big market. I think the 7 is kind of like the weird stepchild happening going on in the Nikon system, if I'm being, you know, easy on them on here. But yeah, I don't know. Let me finish this. We'll go more into it, okay? But they're definitely underpowered feature-wise compared to the rest of that market. So that's where I think is they need to really start beefing up their game, is in the mid-range, which we all know is the mass market for the photo community, is that $2,000 to $2,500 price point. That's where the real battleground is. All the flagship stuff is more of a flex and what they can do and what the pros will buy into, and the Z9 definitely fulfilled that more than you could think. And I think that's where Nikon's battleground is now, is the middle range. Okay. I would like to see a refresh to the Z50. I think having a micro USB port really annoys the hell out of me on that camera. You should have USB-C so you get power delivery. Okay, I don't know if that was me predicting a Z50 Mark II, but we absolutely need to see something from them in crop sensor. They've been ignoring it for too long. So hopefully they do a Z50 Mark II. If not, expand out the DX lineup. Everyone has heard the crying out there of, I want a crop sensor Z9. I'm curious to see how much of a market there really is for that when full frame is in a position to give you the affordability, the size, and the speed now of crop sensor, unless you're really looking to get a stack censored crop sensor, a stack sensor in a crop sensor, APS-C, to be at a price point of like south of $2,800. I don't know if it really is there. I don't know how much. A lot of times the loudest market doesn't mean that it's a huge market, but we'll see. I don't know. Yes, Vic Roman, I would love to see a rangefinder from Nikon. I do not think that's going to happen. I really don't. I think the idea of a 36 megapixel sensor would be good. I agree with you, but I don't think Nikon's going to do a 36 megapixel sensor next to a bunch of 46 megapixel sensors. I think it's too cutting close to each other. I think the 24 megapixel is going to stand for the Z6 III. So I'm calling that right now. Z6 III, I think you're going to see it's going to stay at 24 megapixels. I think it's a very clean sensor. After shooting the ZF, the colors and the look of the image was so phenomenal. Like I'm not even kidding you. As I was shooting that camera, if you ask anybody that was filming me that day, I kept on saying like something's different here. Something looks so much richer in these images, and I think that it might be translating into an evolved Z6 III sensor that's 24 megapixels, lots of speed, autofocus from the Z8, all that kind of stuff, which could make it a press camera, right? It could make it a lower cost press and events camera if it's not a $3,000 camera. That means you could buy two bodies, go to work as a pro, and be fine. So Marvin's saying Z7 III is competition for high-res A7R4, A7R5, which are selling well as far as I know. So are they selling that well? The A7R5 is still a 61 megapixel camera that gives you so many caveats for that higher res. You're talking about slower frame rates, cropped 4K video, no stabilization. I'm sorry, cropped 8K video. I apologize. No stabilization in 8K. Like, gives you all these high-res things, but still has a caveat to things. And not to mention the memory, right? You need the CF Express Type A to get some speed out of that camera. So I don't know how much of a competition it is. I think if you're in Sony and you want high res, those are your cameras. I don't think there's this idea anymore of Canon, Nikon has this, Sony has this, and they're really in competition with each other. I think people are in their systems. They're not flipping so much. People have invested in glass. We're not seeing such huge, I am absolutely switching systems like we were like 7 years ago. You know, we're just not seeing that anymore. Let's see where else I landed on this. I think that we need a refresh to the Z5, but I don't think they're going to do that because the Z5 is selling well still. To this day, it is like $1,100 for a feature-packed full-frame mirrorless camera. And they've got a lot of lenses to go with that camera now, especially that affordable 2.8 Trinity that they're... Okay, so that's funny. I said that I wanted a Z5 Mark II. I still think I would like to see a Z5 Mark II from them. I think it's been a great entry-level camera. What I would like to see happen now instead of a Z5 Mark II is I would just like the Z6 II to become that camera. Knock some more money off the Z6 II. Let that be your entry point to the system for beginners. Why not? Why not? You know? I don't know. And as far as Ralph saying the images are far better in the ZF than the Z6, having shot all the cameras, I don't think it's far better, but there's something going on there with the color science, I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm just seeing things, but it just makes me wonder, what is a Z6 III going to be, right? All right, let's finish up Nikon here, right? The Tamron designs rebuilt with Nikon's, add-ons to it, like the coatings, the ceilings, and all that kind of stuff. It's looking like a pretty good entry-level system. I can't think of an entry-level camera that's that low cost right now. And then I think the other thing I think you're going to see is they're going to open up more support to third party, mainly Tamron, because there's obviously some kind of deal going on with Nikon and Tamron, right? I mean, there's definitely some trade. All right, so I wasn't too correct on that. There are a lot of third-party lenses now. I think Viltrox and Seven Artisans and all those companies. There are Sigma crop sensor lenses for Z mount that are autofocus, believe it or not. There is a 16 millimeter, I think a 30 millimeter, and a 56 millimeter, all 1.4 for crop sensor. But what is that market? There's like two crop sensor cameras, ZFC, Z50, oh, and the Z30. Who has those cameras and are looking so hard for glass out there? I don't know. So will this help propel them into doing higher end crop sensor bodies? Maybe. I think the noise is getting loud for the crop sensor pro and higher end for Nikon users, but I just don't know if they're really going to go do it. I just don't know. I really don't know. Trade off of we're basically going to sell you these Tamron design lenses, and then you let us put out a Tamron. I think they have a 300 millimeter that's like Tamron, but totally for the Z mountains, especially since they got the Z30 out there that they're trying to sell now, which isn't really flying off the shelves for Nikon. They have to find a way to. All right, so just like I said there, Z30, like how many people do you know have that camera? So, but I just don't know if Z30 is a camera where people build out lens kits for it. And Ralph Passing, I'm going to ask, if you're saying the performance is far better in low light, do you mean as far as noise in the image or like auto-focusing in lower light? Because I will give you that it probably focuses better in lower light, but I don't think the noise is that much of a difference, to be honest with you. And I still find the Z6 to be incredibly clean, if I'm being honest. All right, let's go back. Do it. And then the last thing I'm going to say about Nikon is I think we're going to see firmware. I think there's still firmware to be had for the Z9. I think Matt feels the same way. They haven't used the HE Star compressed RAW enough. And they still haven't, which is, yes, we got Z9 firmware 4.0, which gave us things I didn't even think about, like auto capture. Like, what? But they didn't give me drop shadows on my autofocus points. Like, give me that. I need that more than auto capture. Anyway, that said, I still think we're going to see 5.0 for Z9 this year. And I'm saying that because, one, the Olympics are this year, and I think they're going to put out something that gets a little bit more of a boost. Hardware, you have to realize that a new camera comes out when it's a hardware thing. If there's something they can do firmware-wise, they don't want to put out some things that someone's going to just go, well, why couldn't you just give me an update to my Gen whatever? Why do I have to buy a new camera? And I think, if I'm correct, the Canon M50 or something went through this where they put out a new version of it and people were like, this could have just been a firmware update. And that's the last thing a brand wants to hear. So I think Nikon's going to actually put out firmware, try to sell some more existing Z9 bodies, and I'm calling it here right now, I think there's going to be firmware for the Z8 as well. I mean, I can't imagine a whole year of 2024 going by and we don't see a firmware update with extra features for the Z8 as well. Nikon has put their foot down pretty hard as far as that kind of support. What we have not seen is firmware for the Gen 2 bodies, and at this point, I kind of feel like it's just not going to come, which kind of sucks. I wish they would have done it, but I don't think they're going to do it. Instead, I think they're going to put out the Gen 3 bodies with the new processor, which is the biggest deal about a camera as far as an upgrade goes, is the processor, because that's going to reimagine older sensors to run faster, buffers to be not as much of a factor, all sorts of stuff, right? When you have new processors in cameras, you get autofocus boosts, not just recognizing subjects, but I'm talking about working in lower light, being able to work faster. You know, the more it can think, the more it can do, right? So, and it can handle. And also, don't forget about efficiency, which means more battery life, less heat. I think we're going to see a lot of that when I get to Canon. So I think now that Nikon has the XP, what do they call it? The XP 7 out there in the Z9 and Z8. We're going to see that in the Gen 3 bodies. And don't forget, the ZF has it in there already. So the ZF is kind of like the Z6 2.5. I think the Z6 III is going to be a little bit more of just a little bit more of an elevated version of the ZF. I think we're going to see speed. I think we're going to see lower light autofocus abilities boost up. I think we're going to see video specs jump a little bit, but I still think it's going to be 24 megapixel. But I also think we're going to get stuff like that HE Star RAW inside Z6 III. Can you imagine a 24 megapixel file compressed down even to smaller than that, fly it up to wire while you're shooting, like forget about it. I think it's going to be pretty cool. Totally see the HE Star being used in pre-capture RAW, not just JPEG, 30 frames per second RAW, not just JPEG. I think me and Matt Irwin are in agreement on that. So I would hope that we see some firm updates coming down the line even more. And of course, I would love to see the Gen 2 bodies get firmware. I think everybody wants to see the Z6 and Z7 II get firmware updates. They haven't even hit 2.0 yet. So I don't know if there's and they still haven't hit 2.0. I can't imagine what happened there. How you can have such a narrative for firmware updates like Nikon has been doing, and then Gen 2 hasn't seen anything. I question Nikon on this one. Like, what happened, man? What happened? And are they going to basically be saying, if you're on the new processor XPEED 7, those are the bodies you can expect firmware for? I don't know how I feel about that. I wish they kind of would do something for the Gen 2 bodies, or if they're really that maxed out, I don't know what dual processors really do then. I don't know what to tell you. Hardware issue, I don't know if they just haven't prioritized it. I know they're all in on the Z9 right now, but hopefully they just go, all right, let's get our mid-range some attention, because they absolutely need to give the mid-range some attention. And as far as anything else in the lineup goes, I think APS-C will get more focus in like 2024. Personally, I don't think it's a critical market right now for Nikon. I think that it is. Okay, if that happens, I called it 2 years ago. How crazy is that? In 2022, I said you're going to see more support for DX. If 2024 has more support for DX, I already called it in 2022. You can all bank me on that, right? So that's kind of wild. I do think it's about time. I mean, they literally have a camera with micro USB on it. Everything's USB-C. That's how long in the tooth their crop sensor line is getting. Come on, Nikon, let's go. The market. But right now, there's a full frame market that's ever growing more and more by the day, and it's not discrediting the APS-C, but they have to put the resources they have where they need them at the moment. And every brand has been that way. I mean, look at Sony. Sony stopped production of the A6000 series to get ready to make A7 IVs, to be able to produce A1s to get them on the shelves. It hasn't been a priority, you know. And I want to give props to Sony for doing that. They did what they needed to do to support the market that was out there, you know. So that must have been a really hard call during chip shortages, COVID, all that craziness. I got to give props to Sony on dialing back the production on cameras that they knew were going to sit on shelves, while feeding in parts and support and resources to bodies that people were on waiting lists for. So props to Sony on that. So that's my spiel on Nikon, I think. What do we do? Z8, a bunch of lenses, the full frame ZFC, maybe some DX lenses. Hopefully Gen 3 hits in October, end of the year, October, I'm hoping. Firmware updates, some more Tamron support I think is going to happen, and that's kind of where I'm landing on the Nikon. I just think Nikon's in for a big year. They've set up a lot of, you know, a lot of pins to knock down for 2020. All right, so let's talk about this comment. So Henning's saying Nikon concentrates on XPEED 7. They just lifted older XPEED 6 camera on second gen level, but they didn't develop new tech for XPEED 6. So second gen didn't get significant new features. The reality is they probably, that hardware was probably maxed out. It's not that they didn't develop new technologies. After a while, the bandwidth of a processor that's it, you know. The XPEED 7, they're saying, is 12 times faster. 12 times faster. Even if you have two XPEED 6s, you can't get near that speed or that processing ability. So it does suck, and I'm not giving them any excuses. I would have liked to have seen anything come out for Gen 2 to get them a significant update to something, somewhere, somehow. But they just didn't do it. So hopefully they can ride that storm of when Gen 3 is out, that people still trust the support is there after they see how much the XPEED 7 is being supported. That said, I want to say that, you know, all the brands have to throw their resources towards supporting their next gen processing. Otherwise, they're just going to fall apart. If you're going to try to look for, okay, what I'll say about that is when I say support, I mean new features, adding more things, bringing more power. As far as support being bug fixes, making sure your gear runs tight, you're still seeing Nikon update cameras from DSLR crop sensor range. They're still doing it. I mean, Canon updates super old bodies all the time when they find new bugs. So they're still supported. They're just not getting juiced up, right? And you got to think that a camera brand, has to keep looking forward. And in these times, they really got to get their next platform dialed in, which is where I think Canon is kind of stuck right now, is they're on the Digic X processor. And with the R5, you had overheat issues. You have the micro HDMI port. I'm getting the hiccups. You got to be kidding me. They have the micro HDMI port, which is a symptom of the board, which is dictated by the processor they have on that board. So they got a ways to go. I think that's any new info on the new Flashpoint trigger? No. I even asked them and they said, I'm not kidding, they went like this. So I don't know what's going on with that. I know you're talking about the Nano, that little tiny iWatch, the Apple Watch thing. I don't know anything about it. I saw it once in my hand and that was about it. Okay, so that's it for Nikon. How do you guys feel about Nikon? I think I was right on a few things. For 2024, what I think we're going to see is, if not the first quarter, the first half, at least the Z6 III. I really don't know about a Z7 III. I don't know if they have a twin release in them. I'm just not sure that they have. I just don't think that there's that much of a marketplace for the Z7 when they've sold so many Z8s, and the Z8 even goes on rebates, so it's like, I don't know. I just think that they really need to pay attention to their mid-range. All right, they got their pro bodies out. Z9, Z8, yeah. Let's get those Gen 3 bodies out. Let's get some APS-C support. A Z50 Mark II would be great. I would love to see a price drop on the Z6 II to a point where it becomes their beginner camera. Even if they take a bath on it cost-wise, just get people in the system. Why not? The Z5 would have to go down pretty low in price to make the Z6 II not enticing, or they're going to have to discontinue the Z6 II, which I don't think they're going to do for a while after the Z6 III is out. So that's it. Marvin Phillips is asking about a Z9H, and I think you're asking me about what people are rumoring for a high-speed camera. I just don't see it, okay? I don't see them trying to put out another pro-end body with a different narrative to it. They've got a mid-range they need to placate to. I just don't see a Z9H. I don't even know where people got that name convention from, to be honest with you. I know from the D1H era or something like that. I don't know. I personally would love to see Nikon do a 24 megapixel stacked sensor camera that's super fast, great in low light. I think that would be their press events and maybe even some sports camera. But I really think that they got so many eggs in the 46 megapixel stacked sensor bucket that I just don't see them doing it. At least not in 2024. I'll say that. Not in 2024. Keep in mind, we still have an entire life of the Z system to go here. We're only in year 5, maybe year 6, maybe, so who knows where they're going to go with this. Right now, Gen 3 is absolutely needed, and I think they got to focus on that. What is going on with this screen? So Henning is saying, we love to continue to support new features even more. However, no one should buy a camera and speculate on getting a whole new camera by firmware. Absolutely right. However, Henning, what I will say, especially based on that video I put out, the most important spec, the brand of a camera, the philosophy of a brand is the most important thing. If you show that much support, it makes you develop a loyal audience just that much more. A long time ago, Fujifilm put out a camera that had 1080 video. They gave you a firmware update that ended up giving you 4K video as a spec. You could shoot 4K in the camera you already own, and it built the loyalty for that brand like no tomorrow. It's slipping me which camera it is, but that was nuts. And that was the first time I actually heard rumblings of firmware being something people consider. And then when you had the Z9 getting all these updates, and they were calling it, they said, even when the Z9 came out in the beginning, they said, You're going to get 8K 60 raw video in the next update. Boom, you got it. I mean, they just kept on throwing out extra stuff. No, you shouldn't buy a camera based on thinking you're going to get some free upgrades, but showing that you're absolutely having a habit of it will absolutely build customer loyal base, without a doubt. Without a doubt. If we expect it, that's kind of like a 50-50, right? Should we expect it? I don't know, you know? Anyway, I think I was pretty much on the money for Nikon, except for the ZF being actually a higher spec than I thought it was going to be, but not bad, guys. What do you guys think? We can go into Canon next if you guys want, or Sony, Fuji, Lumix, or OM, while I take a drink of this water because my throat is drying out. Yeah, Marcus, I'm with you. The Z9 compared to launch is almost a new camera, which is where I don't think we're going to see things like another variant to the Z9, like a Z9 II or Z9H, because the hardware of the Z9, aside from like maybe a resolution bump in the EVF or making the card slots 4.0, I just don't see a need to try to sell yet another Z9. It would be pretty tough. It would be pretty tough, I think, you know? Yeah, Ralph is saying if they do a high-speed version, they have to do a click for the Olympics. I just don't think it's going to happen. Who knows what? Maybe the Z6 III is that. I don't know. I doubt it, but it would be kind of cool. Thank you so much for the donation, Long Rider. I really appreciate it. Canon. All right, let's do Canon. Let's see what I said for Canon. Okay, Canon. Whoop. Let's see what I said for Canon in 23. See if I'm right. My cool thing. Okay, Canon. Canon, I think, is a little all over the place. Canon's a great brand, great. Okay, before we get into this, I'm going to go into, I would totally buy a global shutter Z9. Have you shot global shutter? Do you know? If you had a global shutter 46 megapixel camera, not only would the price jump up exponentially, maybe 2/3, you would be dealing with heat issues, noise issues, dynamic range issues. The fact that you would have to have a buffer to be able to handle that much data that quickly, cards that were super fast. Like, I don't think people hear global shutter and think it's like this magic thing. There's caveats to it, and we're in Gen 1 of it being applied this way. I just want to cool down that whole thing before that gets out of hand, because I feel like everybody just took a big dose of whatever was being said out there, as opposed to actually having tried it out and experienced it. And we haven't even seen raw images too much out of a global. I'm not going to get into this. Anyway, let's go into Canon. First of all, what I just said on the Canon, that they're all over the place, I kind of still feel that way. Canon has this system that the buttons and the switches are kind of in different places on different cameras. They kind of have like seven different entry level cameras, right? R10, R7, R8, RP. The original R is still out there. What else is out there? Did I say the R10? The R50, right? They've got all these cameras for entry level. It's like, where do you go? If you are a new user and you go to the Canon and you're like, I want to buy a Canon because all my friends have Canons and I like the way the Canons look, let me go take a look at them. And I was like, I'd be like, I wouldn't even know where to start because I don't know what all these numbers and names mean. So I feel like they're still kind of a little all over the place, but that's what I said in 2023, and I kind of still stand by it. R100, yeah, that was another one. Company. I think that they're struggling right now selling the R10, and I can say that because I have insight from retailers, right? R7's doing okay, nothing, not groundbreaking, but it's doing pretty good for what it is. So I think what they're going to do is throw down a ton of support and start pushing out APS-C lenses that they have lined up for the RF mount. That being said, I think this... All right, I was totally wrong about that because I don't think I've seen any APS-C lenses come out. Wow. I still would agree with myself back then. If I said that to myself, I probably still would think that there would have been. All right, let's keep going. Is the year that we see the RF mount get a ton of boost. And what I mean by that is, one, I think we're going to see an RF mount M50. I think we're going to see... Totally did. You saw an RF mount M50. The R50 is totally out. So I was right on that. I probably didn't think they were going to kill off the M mount, which they ended up doing anyway. But hey, at least you have a unified mount. Good on Canon. Everything's under RF except for their Cine line, unfortunately. But other than that, they have like the C7 and the R5C as RF mount cameras. But I would like to see the C series, C100 to 500, the cinema cameras all get the RF mount. I'm sure everybody would. The vlog camera from Canon come out with the RF mount, not the M mount. I think this is the year we might see that. I will say that the one area of Canon's game that is suffering from the RF mount is the Cine line. So hear me out. The C series, the C300s, 500s, all that, they're very hard to swap the mount over to RF. However, Red, you can swap on to an RF mount, no problem. They're still on this EF mount where EF mount lenses are being discontinued left and right, and rental houses, which are heavy for cinema, are having a hard time keeping up with repairs. So that's still a thing. However, we just got the 24-105 2.8, which is an external zoom. I'm sorry, it's an internal zoom lens. Pretty big. It's like the size of a 7200, but it also can have power zoom. What that tells me is that there's going to be a series of these lenses, and they're getting ready to put out a cinema line. I'm going to say this is the year we start seeing RF Cine line from Canon, and they're going to keep on putting out these awesome lenses like they did the 24-105. Now, a lot of people jumped on it like, yes, the 24-105 is my favorite stills ever, you know? And yeah, it's great for stills. Cool. It's a 2.8. Awesome. I wish Nikon did a 24-120 2.8. Believe me. However, it's totally leaning on a video end of things, and that is a huge telltale to me that we're going to see more lenses like this, especially with a power zoom. Like, it's going to be a line, like a power zoom line, and we're going to see the C series get some RF mount new additions to the lineup this year. Hopefully I'm right about that, because I think every Canon cinema and video shooter totally deserves an RF mount here, okay? For the EF mount glass. So I think they're finally going to be like, all right, here's our C series with RF mount, like the C70, like the R5C. I think they're going to finally pay attention to their cinema line for the RF mount and get that glass moving out there. On top of which, they're going to unify the RF mount for their entire lineup, from the APS-C, which they've just done with the R10 and R7, to the M series cameras that they see sell well, but are in their. Okay, so I'm going to address this really quick from Boris in the chat. He's saying Canon screwed themselves with pricing. They positioned the R3 as a halo camera and priced it like one, but will need to price the R1 competitive with the Z9 and A1. Well, they did, man. Check this out. This is competitively priced. You're looking at $5,000 when the Z9 is $5,500, the A1 is $6,500. So they dropped $1,000 off of that R3. They knew they had to do that. Plus, maybe they're getting ready to drop an R1. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of the R1. Meow, 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 meow. That said, they priced the R3 a little high. I get it, but it's also still a phenomenal camera. The thing that I will say about Canon that kind of still blows my mind a little bit is the R3 is the only BSI sensor in their lineup, and it's only because it's also the only stacked sensor in their lineup. BSI, if you don't know, means backside illuminated. It absolutely helps lower the noise in an image. And you can look at images side by side, and like by a stop, you'll see lower noise like that. But that aside, it just seems like standard for every other brand out there. I don't know why Canon's not on BSI sensors. But the R3 is BSI, and the R3 is stacked, and it is super fast, and the technology in it's great, and it's a pro camera, and a lot of sports shooters absolutely love this camera. But you're right, a little up there in price. I hope this isn't boring for everybody. I feel like I'm like on a whole nother tangent, but I do hope that let's get through this, and I'll go into my prediction for Canon. Own little world with M mount. I think they're going to bring them over into the RF world. I think that's going to happen this year. And as far as the cameras go, I think the RP is in a desperate need for a refresh. That camera is so bare bones for the full frame market, especially next to the Z5, which is like $100 more. Okay, so I was kind of right there. The R8, I'm pretty sure is like a revamped RP, right? You get a pretty hey, what's up, Psycho? It's been a while. You get that, you know, dialed back camera for a decent price, and you get some pretty heavy video specs in that camera. So maybe the R8 is, I was kind of right. Give me, what do you guys think? I was 50-50 on that one? 50-50? I don't know. The R8 still has no IBIS. I know. But it has some good specs in it for the price. I got to give it to them on Canon. They've been just kind of like putting parts together to make something happen, but they've been making things happen. You know, they're Canon. They're massive. They're the number one in the game, guys. And gives you like 10 times the camera. I think they're going to have to revisit the RP. That being said, RF mount, I think, is going to have a real strong foundation during 2023. The R6 Mark II is killer. For the camera that it is. It's just, I'm wondering what's going on with the non-backside illuminated sensors. I don't know why they're not utilizing them outside of the R3. A lot of people think we're going to see an R5 Mark II. The reason I don't think you're going to see an R5 II, even though I think this is totally a good time for it, it still sells exceptionally well. And okay, I'm going to disagree with myself right there. The R5 Mark II, I've been asked about this camera more than anything else in the world, I swear. People ask me if it's going to come out, if I think it's going to come out. Here's the reason why I don't think you're going to see an R5 Mark II next. Maybe next year, but not next. I think Canon absolutely needs to put out an R1 that has to set the new processor, the higher technology, whatever Digic processor name they're going to shove in that thing. I think it's going to be about the processor, and then you will see an R5 II with the new processor, and then you'll see the updates to the rest of the lineup with the new processor, which will get them a bigger HDMI port, no heating issues, you know, like it'll be more efficient. They'll be able to do more with that processor, but it has to start at tier 1 because they put an R5 II next and they still don't have a flagship. What are they going to do? Work backwards? No, it's going to have to be. And also keep in mind, any camera you guys see coming out, any camera you see come out has to last for a minimum of 3 years on the market. Right? So whatever technology is in that has to hold its ground for 3 years. If it comes out of the gate behind something or older technology or anything, it's already going to have a hard life making it to the 3-year mark in the market. Take it easy, Ken. I'll talk to you later, man. Do you guys understand what I'm saying? So I think you're going to see an R1 next, and then you'll see an R5 Mark II. But I don't think you'll see an R5 II till like the second half of the year, okay? It's very long in the tooth. That camera has been out for a very long time in today's standards, but it still sells incredibly well. People still love that camera, and I totally get it. If you're in the Canon system, that seems like a no-brainer camera, right? But I do think that you're going to see an R1 and then an R5 kind of take some things from that R1. That said, I'm calling it right here, right now. I don't think the R1 is going to be global. It's not going to be a global shutter. It'll be stacked. And the reason I think that is because Canon wants to put out a flagship that has proven technology, not any compromises, not caveats, but a beast. And I think that's what the R1 is going to be, is a refined, higher technology like stacked sensors, because they only have the R3 as a stacked sensor. I don't think the R1 is going to be global. I'm calling it here right now. That said, I'm sure it'll be phenomenal. The rumors already stated it won't be stacked. I think it'll be totally be stacked. Totally be stacked. Thanks, Vic. I appreciate it. And while Vic's saying that, I just want to say thanks to everybody who's been subscribing to this channel. If you're new here, this channel was at 12,000 subscribers before September, and now it's sitting around, getting around 35,000. And I can't thank you guys enough. It is very hard to do a channel on your own. It is very hard to even stay motivated to put a channel together and keep throwing content together and burning your resources and your sanity to do it. And having it not thrown into a void absolutely makes it all worthwhile. It makes you feel like doing the next video. So thank you guys for sticking with me. I really appreciate it. Mark says, I agree about the R1. I have an R5 and love it. like most Canon R5 shooters. Yeah, the R5 is a great camera. Yes, it had some issues in the video. It did have some heat issues, sure, but they were putting out a pioneering technology. They were like, we're doing 8K, bang. You know, if any other camera system, you know, let's just, I'm just going to put this out there, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this. If it was Sony, there'd be no hate. There wouldn't have been like, they'd been like, it overheats, but it still does 8K. Look, it's at the time it was progressive. Whoa, 8K. But because it was Canon, people jumped down their throat. I think we have a real bad problem with brand biases in the discussions in this industry. Case in point, Nikon Z6 I, Gen 1 from six years ago, had a single card slot, and every YouTuber on earth was like, this is them going out of business. They can't produce anything. That was a $2,000 camera and a Z7, which was a $3,000 camera with one card slot. They said, it's garbage. They're going to go out of business. Then the cameras actually got into the hands of users and they sold out. The other thing that happened was recently Sony puts out an A7C II. It's a $3,000 camera with a single card slot. No one mentions it. No one says anything. That's 6 years later. 6 years later. So really watch what narratives you guys listen to out there and really look at what you're getting per dollar, and you're voting with your dollars. So if you like what a brand's doing, then it's your brand. There is no right answer to brands. There is no right answer. I repeat, no right answer to brands. I run multiple systems because they all do something different, and I'm a lunatic because I do this every day. All right, man. All right, let's. Okay, so really quickly, EJ is asking: a stack sensor is two sensors. Would they do a triple stack sensor? Is that possible? So stack sensor actually just means it's one sensor, but in the sensor is actually a RAM that is pulling the data off quicker than if it was a standard sensor. That allows for no blackout in your EVF, faster rolling shutter so you can freeze action, faster frames per second, 20, 30 frames per second. That's what stack sensors get you. And electronic shutters, obviously, which isn't a stack sensor thing, but being only electronic shutter, I should say, no mechanical shutter. Whew. Hope that made sense. Anyway, let's go back to Canon. If you look at the specs, man, what is going on with my neck? If you look at the specs of the R5, it's holding its ground against what's out there next to it. You can talk about overheat issues, which aren't as prevalent as you may think, and they've addressed them with the R5C for the people that are going to deal with it. The R5C is selling really, really well to the people it's meant for, which is higher end video guys, cinema guys that need, and when I say guys, I mean people. It could be male, female, whatever. People that shoot video that are above hybrid, that are needing a second camera to match their Canon cinema line, that interface that matches so they're in the same. So Tony's asking, with the Olympics being next year, are the brands dropping new flagships? This has always been like a time you would see new flagships, I guess, but they're not on a schedule for the Olympics. It's kind of like an old hat kind of thing. However, that said, I don't think you're going to see a new Z9, like I just said. I think you're going to see new firmware for it. I do think you're going to see a Canon flagship this year. I would like to see it in the first half. I'd like to see it before the Olympics. I don't know, but I absolutely do believe in my soul this is the year that we see an R1 from Canon. And as far as Sony goes, they kind of already showed their cards with the A9 III global shutter. I don't think you're going to see an A1 Mark II. I think you might see an A1 marked down in price a little bit, just to get them moving a little more. But I don't think you're going to see an A1 Mark II. I'll get into my Sony prediction later. Let's finish up with Canon. Headspace while they work, things like that. So I think that we might have no real reason for an R5 Mark II at this time, and it would put a lot of stress on them to produce and try to sell it, honestly. So I don't know. I really don't know what to say as far as that. So there's some stuff going on in the chat. I'm just going to address some of it. Albert is asking, how often do card slots fail? That would make a 2-slot camera absolutely essential. Depends on you, okay? For me, I tether so much to a laptop that I don't really care about redundancy in cards all the time. That said, if I was shooting a sport event or some kind of news thing, yeah, I'd want to shoot redundancies in case not the slot fails, but the card fails. And there's been instances of cards getting corrupted. That said, SD memory seems to be more prone to that than CF Express Type B memory does, because CF Express Type B memory is an actual, basically solid state drive. Honestly, it's going into a PCIe slot like a hard drive would. So I think the 2 card slot thing, if you are a pro, absolutely makes sense to me. I know you want it. You get it. But if you're someone that shoots heavily in the studio and you're tethering to a computer, you're saving to card and you're saving to your hard drive on the computer anyway. You're not really that crazy about it. So it depends on your use case and depends on you, right? If you really feel you need those redundancies, that's up to you. I know I just kind of like having it because sometimes I fill up cards so fast that I just like having a second card already in the body. But it's more about the card failing than the camera itself failing, which is kind of interesting because the Nikon ZF has an SD slot, and I thought it was single slot when I saw the camera, and then I saw the extra slot was a micro SD. Will we start seeing single slot cameras that have an onboard memory? Is that what's really going to happen? Because I'm treating the micro SD like it's onboard memory, like Leica's doing and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if that's where we're going to start heading when we see single slot cameras. Are we going to see onboard memory along with the single slot? So it's not so, oh no, I only have one place to save kind of a thing. Anyway, let's go back to Canon. That goes. But the reason I'm having a trouble with the R1 is because I'm wondering one of two things. Are they trying to do something that the camera just isn't getting there for them? Like, are they not getting a fast enough readout speed for whatever they're trying to do on the sensor? Or are they achieving something amazing, but they can't get it to production at a cost where the price can be even affordable? If the R3 is $6,000, do you think there's a market for a $7,500 R1? And if so, is it worth it? Okay, so we just saw that the Canon R3 is now down to $5,000 in the US. So could an R1 be $6,500? Is that reasonable price? We don't know what it is. We don't know what the philosophy of that camera is, but is that a reasonable flagship price? I think so. If it delivers, tools are tools, man. Hey, the Sony A1 was $6,500 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago, Ab, what's going on, buddy? Ab is saying he would like to see the R5C with a new battery and internal ND would be so nice. I think that's a completely different camera. The R5C is basically saying, hey, this is the capability of the R5. You build it out to what you want. And if, for those of you who don't know, the R5C has a lot of caveats unless you plug in an external battery source via USB-C. That said, most guys that are shooting, or most people I should say, that are shooting with that camera are building it out with a battery anyway. It's not even a factor to them. What I think was the miss on that camera, even though some people say they don't care about it, is IBIS. I think it should have had IBIS. I watched people film with it get kind of janky with it because they didn't get a stabilizer that when they needed it or whatever. ND filters would be amazing. I'm with you on that, Ab. I just don't know if that's enough to make a new R5C. We'll see, right? I don't know. And by the way, guys, I'm getting alerts on my phone from the power company that there's outages happening from a storm. So if I cut out, I apologize. I'll try to, alert you in the Discord or something like that. So the R1, I think it has to come so that the rest of the line can get updated. And then we're going to finally see Canon have a more cohesive system as far as everything's under RF mount. No more M mount, EF mount, EFS, and RF mount. None of all, just all RF. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to have the C100 series, the whole cinema camera. They're going to start releasing those with RF mount. I think we're going to see Power Zoom series come out. Along with the 24-105 2.8, we're going to see some more lenses that give you that Power Zoom option. It just feels so sensical. It makes sense to me. I totally think that Canon is in a place to really slay it this year for their user base. And the reason I say that is, like I said before, I just don't think people are looking at camera brands and switching to each other. camera brands will always leapfrog each other as far as specs go. You have to really look at the way they do things and see if that's the way you want your tools to be. If their methods as a brand align with the way you work or what you need, or the way they release things, or the way they support things, or their price points, or whatever, that's up to you. The specs will always come, right? Listen, a Canon R5 had 8K video. Next thing you know, Sony and Nikon have 8K video, right? So it just it comes. You just have to get to a point where you can breathe for a second instead of needing it as soon as somebody else has it, you know? All right. What is this? So you want a full frame C70? The reason I think the C70 works so well is because it's smaller sensor. The smaller sensor keeps the price point lower, keeps the rolling shutter at a faster pace. You know, there's a lot of reasons for but I get it, Ab. I get it. I just don't know if we're going to see a full frame C70. What I would like to see Canon do is put out some pocket cameras to go up against the Blackmagic Pocket and the FX30. I think that would be a really interesting camera to bring to market personally. But, you know, there's that. All right. Did I say anything else about Canon? Because it might be sold to a fraction of a fraction of a fraction that's out there. Maybe rental houses. Who knows? But it's going to be a camera that's going to be so out of reach for people at that price point. So I wonder what is. Are they chasing a global shutter? Canon has in the red Komodo, it's a Canon sensor. It's global shutter. It's APS. It's a Super 35, so it's a small sensor. Could they be chasing global shutter? I don't know. Well, I'm saying right here, right now, I don't think it's global. I wasn't sure back then. I don't think it's happening now. That said, yeah, Canon has had global shutter technology for years now. It's just been in video. I'm not a dream crusher, Ab. I'm just trying to keep it real, son. What's up, Ronald? Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Ronald. I'm just keeping it real, you know? I think people get these like high expectations from brands and then we just get crushed by the reality of it, right? You know, I don't know. So Boris is saying the real Canon issue is what an R1 will be. It has to leapfrog the Xenon at this point. I don't think it has to leapfrog anything. I think Canon just needs a solid 100% beast mode flagship pro camera. It doesn't have to be some unicorn. It just has to be awesome and reliable. And that's what pros need. If you're in the Canon system, you're looking for that camera. The R5 has been like the unsung flagship for them. The R3 was kind of like it's the most expensive and fastest. I guess that's going to be the flagship. They need to plant down and go, no, this is our flagship. You know, a story I like telling is Nikon came in with the Z9 to debut it to us before we did the video for Adorama, and I had to give them credit. They looked at us, they put the camera on the table and said, we are making a statement. This is our flagship. We are saying it. It absolutely is. We are the ones saying it's a flagship. Canon's hasn't really done that with their mirrorless system yet. And I really hope the R1 is something they really are proud of. They can really throw down, that there's not some catch to it, caveat to it, that people can get access to it. There'll be stock on it. I really hope that the R1 is just reliable and awesome. It doesn't have to leapfrog a thing. No one's jumping from Nikon to Canon because Canon has 10 more frames per second or something like that. All right, let's finish out Canon. They'll move. But something's holding it up. If it's even a thing. They say the R3 is not their flagship. Is there an R1 coming? I don't know. All right. Well, that's where I'm at with Canon. Also, I am just 50 subscribers away from hitting 11,000 subscribers. And thank you guys for being... Okay. What? So what? Whoa. I just said I was not even at 11,000 subscribers at the time of this video, and at the time of this video, I am close to 35,000. So thank you guys. Thank you. This means someone's spreading something somewhere. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. If you're watching this video, giving a like will definitely help. I'm sure this is running super long and no one's going to watch this in playback. If you are watching this in playback, write me a comment down below. I'm really curious about that. So that's where I'm at with Canon. Anybody not think I'm on the right page with that? I was right about a couple things. Yeah, So the GFX 2 autofocus is different than the GFX 100S autofocus. Let's be real about that. I wish I could afford the GFX 100 Mark II. It is $7,500. Even if I sell my GFX 100, I'm still going to need to find like $4,000, and I just can't do it. That said, I am buying a Z8 because I flipped some gear, and I do need a secondary body that goes with my Z9. So that's going to happen this week. And I'm still going to shoot my GFX 100S. And why? Because that camera's awesome. I love my GFX 100S. I love the images out of that thing. I love it, love it, love it. I like the glass. I think the GFX system is just awesome. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right. Woo. All right. What about, oh, sorry, Marvin. What about Canon doubling down on mid-priced lenses? You know, it does feel like Canon's kind of just been like, with lenses, right? It's very weird the way they're going about it. The thing that is weird to me is you have a 70 to 200 2.8 lens that is shrunk down, external focus, external zoom, and cannot take teleconverters. And then they put out a 24 to 105 2.8 that's internal zoom, longer, built like a 70 to 200 2.8. It's so like, where are these designs coming from? So as far as lenses go for Canon, I cannot figure it out. They make amazing glass. They've always made beautiful glass. I don't know, but I will say this. There is no way you're seeing third-party lenses for RF mount in 2024. I don't think that's happening. I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. But it just doesn't feel like it, especially when they're going to try to sell a flagship next year. I think personally, they're going to want their glass to go along with that flagship. I just think it is, you know? Yeah, Tony, I'm with you. The R1 doesn't have to leapfrog anything, nothing. Wait, what is this? My prediction for 2024, Seth is going to have more time on his hands by not having to answer the question, when is the Z8 coming out? That's pretty funny. You know what was funny about the Z8? There was no information about one at all. People like wished this camera into fruition almost. I mean, yeah, the number system for the models and everything made sense. The ZF was wished into fruition. Nobody really talked about that camera. Then all of a sudden it just appeared, you know. I too believe Canon will release a proven refined tech for the A. You mean the R1, Ronald? Right? I think, Canon is, I don't think people understand how massive Canon is and how number one they are for the camera market in the world. They still are cranking out DSLRs. They still sell DSLRs worldwide. They're massive. They have the resources. I'm just wondering what's going on over there. All right. Any questions before I get going here? Any info on the Z6 III? I absolutely think the Z6. I've been saying this the whole time. You're probably late to the game here, psychopath. But Z6 III, I'm calling it for Q1, if not the first half of next year. I'm calling it. Whew, man. The R3 autofocus and viewfinder are insane, and that was on pre-production. Yeah, so I really do like Canon's viewfinders. And I'm going to say this now, and I'm going to start wishing it into fruition like everything else that happens. The Canon R3 has something called OVF simulation, optical viewfinder simulation, where it takes the viewfinder and makes it HDR'd so you feel like you're looking through glass. And it doesn't give you real-time exposure, which it shouldn't, because it's mimicking a optical viewfinder. That is amazing to have in studio work. I want that in every camera. If somehow Nikon's firmware 5.0 for Z9 gives me that, I'll be so happy. But the one thing I love more than anything about a viewfinder for Canon is they have these, I think they have the perfect drop shadows on all their autofocus points. I can see the autofocus points anywhere, anytime. It's awesome. I think they do really good. What about lighting predictions? You know, there really isn't too much to talk about with that kind of stuff, because what are we seeing? Every single brand do the same things. LED panels, LED tubes, blah, 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 blah. If I'm going to throw anything out there, I think we're going to see one a new ProPhoto D1, a D2, I'm sorry, 1,000 watt second strobe. I think they're going to update those. And I think we're going to see them expand the click system, you know, with the fold out octabanks and everything like that. But I do think we're going to start seeing ProPhoto throw their hat in the constant light game. That's what I think. I don't know anything for sure, but I think it's only a matter of time before they start doing that. All right. Wow. My voice is killing me. I've been going for an hour and 15 minutes already. Yeah, I'm with you, Ab. I would love to see a D2 with a full dome. I'm with you, man. I would buy that day one, and I would go into debt for it, and I would try to find an extra job just to get that paid for. Global tech potential is exciting. I just don't think it's developed enough for Canon to go that over proven stack sensor. Absolutely, Tim Hunter. You win an award. You win a gold medal for me. You get my squishy pumpkin award, okay? Because that's exactly what I'm trying to tell people. Global being next doesn't mean it's proven and refined as much as a stacked sensor is stacked. I would love to see a stacked sensor just go further and more refined and faster readouts. I mean, I think we're going to find out a few things about global shutter having some issues with noise and dynamic range. And for me, I'd rather have image quality over just the few things global gives me. I'm sorry, but that's just where I'm at personally. That's my personal thing. Okay. Did you ever notice a green cast from the Explorer 100? Yes, and there are new lenses that you can put on the strobe to mitigate that. Contact them. They'll give you, I think they'll give you a new plastic lens for the strobe to mitigate that. Roger Manning is asking, how about Nikon flashes? Dead yet? I think they are. I don't think there's any reason for them to produce it. They have been so tightly partnered with ProPhoto and I think Nissan that they don't need to. Good. Let the lighting companies do the lighting stuff and let Nikon use their resources to give us firmware, Gen 3 bodies, DX crop sensor cameras, more lenses. Do what you do and let them do what they do. I'm all for the lighting companies giving us the speed light options, honestly. I'm for that. All right. Oh, Tony, you totally forgot. I totally forgot. So I'm calling it right now. You ready for this? You guys ready? You guys ready for this? I want to hear a bunch of readies in the chat because I'm about to drop it on you. I want to see everyone type ready because I totally forgot to mention this earlier. You guys ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Tell me you're ready. I think, hear my words when I say this. Hear me when I say this. 2024 is the year you are going to see Nikon cinema video. I'm calling it now. They have been scratching at the door with the Z9, with the remote grip, with all these raw video, all the raw video that they open the door for everyone else to use. I am absolutely calling it right now. 2024, you're going to see something that's video cine-centric, not still-centric, video-centric from Nikon. Whether it's a pocket camera, whether it's a full-on cine camera, whether it has freaking PL mount. I don't care. I'm telling you right now, I'm calling it. I have no inside information. But I feel 2024 is that time. Now, you want to hear something crazier? You want to hear something even crazier? This is Tin Hat Seth. You ready for conspiracy theory, Seth? Are you ready for it? Tell me you're ready for the conspiracy theory, because I'm about to add on top of this. You ready for it? Tell me you're ready for it if you want to hear it, because I'm going to drop something that's going to blow your brains apart. On top of that, Nikon has a patent for a global electronic shutter hybrid sensor. They have sensors with 1,000 frames per second readouts. that go into security cameras. Tell me that if they're going to make a splash in that world, what is a better first impression than a refined global shutter ready for cine? Just like the Komodo that Canon was putting out, tell me that this isn't where it was going to go. I really think this is what's going to happen. At the very least, we're going to see video or cine from Nikon. If it's global, I'm going to say I'm half in it, because I think that's the way you make a massive splash, is you put it in there with the Z-Cam, with the Komodo, you get in that world. We'll see, but I'm calling it now. Nikon Cine 2024. Maybe open gate. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But I do think that's going to happen. Can you believe I almost forgot to mention this? Yo, is Matt in here? Matt, tell me you don't think... Where is he? Matt, where you at, buddy? Tell me you don't think next year is video time for Nikon. Gen 3 and Cine. Bang, bang, bang. I think it's going to happen. All right. Enough with those guys. Do you guys want to go into Fuji or Sony? Fuji or Sony, let me know in the chat. Well, this is going to be like a long stream, huh? Can you imagine all that non-breathing Z-glass? The Z-glass was made for video. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, baby. I'm telling you, baby. Okay, we got a bunch of Fuji, Sony. All right, Sony can go last. Jeez. I got Lumix. In fact, I know for a fact I was right about Lumix from last year, and I'm very excited to drop that out. All right, let's do this. I'm going to do Fuji next. Man, my throat's killing me. I don't know how to professionally talk. I talk too hard. I can't go for long periods of time. I would love to get Matt on Coffee with Creators. He's got to get over to New York first. All right, let's go into... You want me to do... Okay, Ken, you want me to do Pentax? Here's my saying on Pentax. We're going to get a GR4. Done. All right, that was good for Pentax. Mwah. I hope we get a GR4. I'll totally be the first one to buy it. Okay. Whew. Man, what a night. What a night. All right, here we go. Fuji are super hungry and aggressive for GFX. So in my opinion, based on just what they sound like when I talk to them, it sounds like a new GFX is going to hit next year. I think they're really looking to push this camera for video. And hear me out on this. They truly believe that their GFX system adds something to the cinema space by being the largest surface area sensor that still has autofocus. And they're gorgeous sensors. They're gorgeous color, incredible bit depth, beautiful dynamic range. They're absolutely beautiful. So if you ask me which GFX they're going to put out, I think we're actually going to see another 100. I don't think they're done with that 100. They're really standing out in the market with that 100. I got it right here. I got the GFX 100S. Yo, totally got it. New GFX 100 Mark II came out. It's awesome, as predicted. And yeah, man, slaying it. God damn. That said, I think they officially have discontinued the GFX 50S2, the one that was like a very low cost version. So I don't know if we're going to see a 50 megapixel GFX going forward, unless it's some kind of price point that doesn't have like a caveat of it being like an older sensor or something. I just don't know. Is there a market for the GFX 50 when there's so much full frame 50 megapixel happening that, yes, it's not the same. There's an image difference, all that sort of stuff. But does it matter? Does that matter? I don't know. You know, I know Ab has both GFX 100s, and it's a phenomenal camera. And I shot the prototype of the original GFX 100, and back then it was incredible. So, and I got tattooed in Tokyo, hand poked. So please check out my GFX 100 video on Adorama TV if you want to watch me photograph myself getting tattooed. So yeah, I think based on the way they're talking, it really sounds like the GFX is getting a refresh. And here's my prediction. One, I think that it's going to incorporate CF Express Type B somehow. I think they've been leaning on SD. I think it's throttling what the camera can do. I think the key to getting some speed out of all that data is going to be the CF Express Type B memory. I hope they do that at least. They haven't really, and they did. It's mixed card slots. I did not see that coming. I totally thought it was going to be dual CF Express Type B. I'm not sure the philosophy of mixing card slots for a camera that high up, but wow, man, I was on that one. Said anything about it, but they have put CF Express Type B in their other cameras now. So it just seems like the natural progression, right? I think they're probably going to do something where they beef up the video specs and leave the stills kind of where they are. I can't imagine them doing much spec-wise stills. Like, what are they going to do? Like, more frames per second or something? I don't know if they can. Actually, yes, Seth, they are. They did more frames per second, and they did go a little bit deeper on the video specs. But, yeah, they did more frames per second. So I was wrong on that regard, but I guess I should have known that. Maybe after they get CF Express Type B, I don't know. I know it's in a niche market, but partnership Fujimi with Frame.io should be a big thing. You know, why don't you expand on that, Patrick? Because the Frame.io is it's interesting, but you have to be part of Frame.io in order to benefit from that, I feel. So it's one of those things. It's the GFX is an incredible camera. It could definitely use a little bit of advancement in low light autofocus, in my opinion. But other than that, and it did. After using it, I feel it definitely got boosted up autofocus, the GFX 100 with the Mark II. I know Ab is totally into the autofocus, so yeah, well, I was right there at least, sort of. Shooting this camera is such a joy in the studio. I really love what I get out of this camera. I can't tell you enough, like, how much I love having this thing. What we might see is some more GFX lenses as well, because what Fujifilm tends to do is when they introduce a camera, they kind of make sure they have a lens to kind of partner up with it. So I think we might see that pop out as well. The X-T5 also had a 30 millimeter macro lens that was introduced as well. We had it and I forgot to do the video on it, so sorry, Fuji. Other than that, that's kind of what I'm thinking is going on. I also, well, what else I have in my notes? Oh, so I would hope, but I don't think it's going to happen, but I would hope that we see a new X Pro. Okay, so I was hoping for an X Pro, and no, we didn't see a new X Pro. I would like to see it still this year. I think it's still a very viable series in their lineup. I still think there's a lot of love for it. What I will say is Fujifilm seems to be in this mode of getting everybody onto their 5th generation, right? X-T5, XH2, XH2S. What I think you're going to see in 2024 is the X Pro, the X100, those cameras getting the Gen 5 love with the newer processors. What could they add to those cameras? I don't know. But I do think that it's time for those to come through. What I would love to see from Fuji this year, which I hope some of you even know what I'm talking about in this regard, I would love to see a new XE3. So maybe an XE4, whatever. Their version of a Ricoh GR3. I would love to see that to pair with an X100. So you could be like, hey, I just want something even smaller without a viewfinder for under $1,000, under $800, an XE4, whatever the number would be. That camera can I show you this, guys? Let me see if I can find one. But does that make sense to you guys? Like Fujifilm XE3. Let me see if I can find one. XE5. So I think making something really, really tiny, like these cameras. Where is it? Just something super, super small, right? Like this. And then that camera can go kind of be the Fujifilm GR3, right? I would love to see that. X Pro, yeah, I would definitely like to see X Pro with IBIS. I think the only thing you could add to an X100 at this point is IBIS. I love the X100 V. It's so good. I love that camera. And you know that they're going to be putting out a new version of it, because I think instead of building a last gen stock of cameras to sell now, they'd rather get everybody onto their Gen 5 platform that they can support with firmware, parts, repair, whatever. They're on that. They're in that world now. They want to bring everybody over there. So the X100V was in such short supply. I think they're just going to put out the next version. And they did that with the XT5, right? The XT4 was hard to get for a long time. Then they put out the XT5, XH2S, XH2. Those came out, and that's kind of how they do things. They just kind of like, well, there's no more stock anymore, but then they put out the new versions, right? And I think that's how they're going to treat this as well, you know? So hopefully they do that kind of stuff. I got another couple minutes of my prediction from last year. Let's see what we got. You know, the X Pro 3 has been out for quite a while. I would like to see what they could do. And I think that's where the XS10 came out. Was a very sleek, small, powerful camera for what it was, but it was an expensive vlog camera, right? So I think what's going on is they're going to revisit the XS10. Totally did. We got the XS20 this year, and I did the video on that, and it was a nice little banger camera, very sleek camera. I like it a lot. So I was right on that regard. I'm doing pretty good on Fuji here, and make it even better. And not that it isn't great right now. So I think they're going to be the elegant higher end of the vlog camera. Does that make sense to you guys? Like a really clean aesthetic, really great, beautiful camera that's meant for those people that were only going to buy that camera and not really get into a system. I think they're going to do it. That's what I think. So other than that, I think we're going to be seeing maybe some more lenses. They seem to be revisiting some of their lenses to put more blades in the aperture so that it looks like a smoother. What's going on, Mosman? If that makes sense to you. I hope I hope my reasoning kind of makes sense. I'm not just kind of like spitting out like a wish list here. I'm trying to be realistic about it based on the way they're talking and the way they're releasing things and where we are in the world as far as manufacturing goes. So that's where I think Fujifilm, because I got this one, but you know, as far I'm throwing my money down on a new GFX. That's where I'm throwing my money. I mean, not buying it because I got this one, but you know, as far as releases go, it's really funny seeing your past self. I got it, and you're kind of like you're in your same mindset, listening to like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. That said, the GFX 100 totally happened. The XS20 totally happened. The X Pro didn't happen, so that sucks. Maybe that's what this year's about. The X Pro, the X100, and I would love to see an XE something come out. Something small, under $800. I think they could crush it, especially if they throw in mechanical ND filters like the X100 has. I think that'd be sick. All right, so that's Fuji. You guys want to go into Sony, Lumix, or OM? Type it in the chat, Sony, Lumix, or OM. And while we're doing that, if you guys could please hit like if you're checking out this video. If you're new to this channel, what's going on? If you're new to this completely, hit subscribe, where I am trying to get this to 40,000. I said to myself, if I get this to 50,000, I will make a hardcore run to get it to 100,000, because 100,000, I really want that silver plaque. I'm starting to get the fever for it. I want that silver play button. So hopefully we can do it. But first I want to get to 50,000 to make sure I can even get that far. All right. So I got OM and I got one for Lumix. Let's just do Lumix. I take OM systems over Sony. Oh, don't even. Listen, I know that, Sony just has their cultive base, and it gets a little annoying sometimes, but the brand itself gives us great technology and stuff like that. So it is what it is. I already pulled up Lumix. It's short. Let's just do it. Let's see what I said for Lumix. I think Lumix is going to revamp their autofocus. Personally, that's what I think. I think that all the people that have completely taken it off the table are going to give it a bit of a shot, and it's going to start eating at some other things. meaning other market share. Okay, so they did revamp their autofocus. We saw phase detect finally come out for the S5. And I'm sure I was like, man, the autofocus, they're going to change it at some point, but I didn't know what body they were going to do it in. The S5 makes total sense. It's a mid-range cost body. It was very popular for them. Now it's even better. I shot the camera for a few days when I did the Sigma 14mm video, and I enjoyed it. I think it's a good camera. It's up to you if you want to give it a shot, but they're built really well. Panasonic is a legacy company out there, and you know, sometimes the colors, their color science is, it feels like Kodak Gold to me, if that makes any sense to you. And some people love it, some people aren't into it, but the people that are into Lumix love the video functionality. Now mix that with the autofocus, you've got a total win going on right there, right? What I would love to see for this year is their new phase detect autofocus go into the S1H new model. They need to put out a new version of that camera. That was a very popular camera for video shooters. I don't know what happened. Why aren't they putting a new one out? Maybe in 2024 we'll finally see that. Let's see what happens here. I know plenty of people that shoot other camera systems along with the Lumix, and the Lumix is their video camera. Now, if they get phase detect autofocus after completely dialing in contrast-based autofocus, which all autofocus systems. Okay, so I wasn't too right on that. After trying out their autofocus, I don't think it was anything like monumental that was like blowing away anybody else's. It did make sense though, right? That they were, you know, they were so deep into contrast-based autofocus, and phase detect, it works in hybrid with contrast, that I thought maybe they had an edge there. And maybe they do. Maybe there's still updates to be had. Rich Formica is asking, why do you think Sony gets so much hate? I don't think Sony gets so much hate. I think we have a very terrible demeanor in our own community of people that just yell at each other and make fun of each other for the decisions they made with the gear they chose to buy. And there's been elitism out there. A lot of the rhetoric comes from Sony Alpha, we're the best. Look at our autofocus. We did mirrorless before they did mirrorless. So it's like, no one cares, man. And a lot of longtime legacy pros that were deeply, including myself, deeply invested in things like DSLR and all the lenses and stuff like that, weren't going to jump into mirrorless just because mirrorless exists and that's the next technology. But I got heckled at my demos about lighting. Like, my demos were for lighting and guys were heckling me for not shooting Sony. That's how bad it got. So that animosity keeps building up, and you end up with this kind of world where we have tribes instead of what we used to have, which were just teams. And we used to just be like, what do you shoot? Cool, I shoot this. What do you like about it? Cool, I like this about this. And that's what people used to do. Not, that company's going out of business because their autofocus is 1% slower. That's where it came from. So I think we don't talk to each other right. I don't think we've been informed correctly. I don't think people even recite information that they know firsthand. They just regurgitate things they've heard from other people and YouTubers and reviewers and stuff. So it's just, I think that's where that comes from. I don't believe that there's like an actual hate for Sony. I think that there's just a lot of back and forth friction points in the discussion, honestly. That's where I'll leave that. Does that make any sense? I'm sure I probably sound like I'm kind of down on that brand every now and then, but it's mainly because almost every comment I get that's yelling at me or calling me something malicious is something to do with Sony. Like they're a Sony user or something. And I'm like, where did this come from? So it kind of bothers me a little bit. But as a brand goes, look, they totally progress technology and they totally give us things that end up in the rest of the industry. And, you know, they do a lot. But I don't think that there's any one supreme brand at all. What I think is funny, and I wonder if you guys in the chat ever think about this, is global shutter going to be the next transition where we had DSLR to mirrorless, and a lot of DSLR shooters held on to their DSLR gear before going into mirrorless because mirrorless wasn't there yet. EVFs were low res, battery life sucked, they overheated, you know, it just wasn't there technology wise yet. And so DSLR shooters held on to the DSLRs. Do you think that mirrorless shooters will be holding on to their gear and not jumping into global shutter cameras so quickly, not just because it's expensive right now, but I do think it's going to cause people to be hesitant to jump into that, not as willingly as they did into mirrorless. So, or DSLR shooters, the same hesitancy as they had to jump into mirrorless. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that. Okay. Let me keep going with Lumix so I can get this done with. Are a hybrid, phase detect and contrast together, they might have one of the best autofocuses coming out. I believe they're going to do this. I believe that they're going to drop something heavy in the first half of the year. I believe that they're tired of not being up in the top echelon. They are a massive company. Panasonic is massive, massive, massive. I am talking like Sony, Panasonic are like humongous giants worldwide. I think they are going to drop something new. What camera? I don't know. I think the S5 is super popular for them, and it is low cost enough for them to do a refresh on it. What? Not only did they do a refresh on it, they did 2 refreshes, the S5 II and the S5 IIX. I totally called it with the autofocus and the body that we were going to do it with. Yo, what? Yo, I'm killing it. Killing it. And at a $2,000 price point, give or take, I totally think that they could enter the competition now if they squash the autofocus discussion, which they could, and I think they will. I think they will. That's my prediction on that. That going forward, if they do fix the autofocus, I would love to see an update to the S1R, their higher res. I would still like to see an update to the S1R with the new resolution. I think that would be it. Is Pentax still viable? Well, what's funny is Pentax is also Ricoh. Ricoh has been crushing with the GR camera, but they make so much other stuff. I mean, like office equipment and lots of other technologies. That's where they really make their money. Pentax, however, also is doing a project where they're bringing in older engineers to teach the younger engineers about film cameras so that they can start producing a line of film cameras again, which is pretty interesting, right? So they're going into, hey, we're the niche company, DSLRs, crop sensor DSLRs, and film. Maybe it'll work. I don't know. Full frame. I would also like to see an S1H revisit. The S1H was a killer camera, basically an R5C years before the R5C. Lumix autofocus is the one thing keeping them being talked about in top tier, but it's a big thing. Case in point, right? I have this on autofocus, and it's focusing on my hand, it's focusing on my face. When you try this with Lumix, it takes a little bit. It's not there, and it's also got that pulsing look. This is a major, it's like we're not giving gear out to channels that will just find reasons to bash us, but it's always Canon, Sony. Eating it for too long. If you notice, the major channels don't touch Lumix. They're like Canon, Sony, maybe Nikon, but it's always Canon, Sony. You don't see Fuji going to major channels anymore. Fuji is like, we're not giving gear out to channels that will just find reasons to bash us to get clicks. So it's going to be interesting to see another player in the game. I hope Lumix pulls it through. You're probably going to see some more lenses. And keep in mind, the cool thing about Lumix, aside from the video stuff, is its L mount. You have Sigma lenses that won't handicap the... Okay, so pretty much what I'm saying there is, if they just got their autofocus game together, they've got a good system going on as it is. And yeah, they do. Their autofocus did get revamped, but like I said before, people aren't jumping from brand to brand anymore. Is it too late? Did people already settle into their Canon, Sony, Fuji, right? Did Nikon, right? Did they already settle into those brands and they bought some glass and now they're invested? Is it too late to grow their market share from the existing market? Do they have to find new users, right? I think what would be best for them, which they will never do, what Lumix will probably never do, but I think they should do, is make the GH cameras APS-C and make them L mount, so that they have one mount between the GH cameras and their S cameras, so that they have all that covered under one mount. And I think just like the other brands, they'll make their user base happier. I think, yes, it'll hurt for a little bit with the GH people going, I can't use my Micro Four Third lenses on this. Cool. Yeah, I get it. But how big is that market base? So I think it would be smart for them to do that. I don't think they will. But I could see them making the GH series stacked sensors. I just don't know when that's going to happen. All right, let's go to Sony land because this is getting way too long. You guys ready for Sony? Let's go into Sony. If you guys are ready, this chat is dead, so I'm trying to see if you guys are still here. And if you can, please hit like. It helps out this channel a lot. Oh, my God. I'm talking all sorts of crazy talk tonight, Vic. I mean, come on. I'm talking about Nikon video cinema cameras. I'm talking about, I don't know what else I was talking about, to be honest with you. I don't know what else I was talking about. You guys ready to go into Sony? Man, I'm getting exhausted. We're going on to 2 hours on this stream already, and I still got Sony and OM to get through. OM's going to be pretty quick. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. You guys there? Type ready if you want to get into Sony. Type ready. Whew, man. All right, let's do it. As far as what I think Sony's going to be doing, I think they're going to start looking at the A6000 series again. They stopped production of that series of cameras so that they could have parts and focus on the A7 IV, the A1. They needed to stock the shelves of those cameras because they were selling like crazy. And good on them, right? They got those cameras out there in the market. So I was right out of the gate. I was right. They put out a new A6000 camera. I can't remember for the life of me remember which number it is. 6500. I can't remember. They're so confusing, that line. The A6000 series. I can't tell you which one's which, why, and how. But I was right. They put out a new one. So, and those cameras are great. Small cameras. Good price point. You can put them on gimbals. Gets young filmmakers started on Sony, E-mount, all that stuff. Right. What we'll see now, though, is they need to kind of clean up the A6000 series. It is confusing. Okay, so Boris is saying, will they do anything for the Olympics? The A9 III is their Olympics camera. Are you kidding me? They don't put out the next technology without pushing it for the biggest stage in the game. That is their sports camera. That is what they're doing. And $6,000 cameras that are new technology are not going to be easy to sell. So they hype you up in, what was it, November? And they'll sell it to you in February, right? And then they keep it going for the Olympics, you know? So that's really, it's not a over-the-counter sale, that one. That one's a little bit of a slow burn. People got to sell some gear for it. They got to decide if the A9 II is, you know, do they want to hold on to the A9 IIs because they don't want to go into global for whatever reason? So it's, you know, it's still Gen 1 technology, but they're pushing it for the pro market. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what I do think that is their Olympics camera, though. Used, man. No one can tell you which camera stands where. The A6000, A6400, A6600, A63. What are each one of these doing? What's the difference? No one knows really. It's such a confused line. I think they're going to simplify it, and I think they're going to put out a new one that basically like ties up all the loose ends and simplifies the lineup for crop sensor people. Okay, so I was wrong about that. I thought that they were going to kind of like discontinue things in that lineup. It doesn't seem like they've done that, but maybe they will this year. I don't know. I do think if there was one place to put a global shutter, I think it would do great in a small censored body like that, where it can be just a little bit more expensive, but it doesn't take massive processing like it does on a full frame sensor. So would we see an A9000, right? Maybe. It wouldn't be a bad idea. It really wouldn't. And the A6000 series has always been a place for them to kind of like showcase a little bit of technology that'll make it to full frame. So, you know, a lot of the firmware starts out in the A6000 series that makes it into the full frame series. So it'd be interesting if they throw the global into the crop sensor, but I don't know if that's going to happen next year or not. What people don't realize, though, is the A6000 series is primarily a gateway for video shooters to get into their system, which is super smart. It's very good for like gimbal-ready camera setup. I think it's going to drop heavily down there, you know? And I was going to say also the CV Express Type A cards, I think they themselves are going to try to find a way to put them out there at a... Whoa. You think Sony needs more E-mount lenses? They have a massive amount of lenses out there, and they have third-party lenses. The third-party lenses are a little handicapped because you don't get the full frames per second or whatever out of the cameras if you use Sigma or whatever. But there are 10 tons of E-mount glass out there for sure. I don't think that's a correct statement. Higher capacity, but I don't know if they're going to come out with a CFX Type A that is more affordable. But I definitely think they're going to add more capacity. I think they can, so here I'm talking about the CFX Type A cards. Yeah, they're going more capacity, but they're still expensive. Even with third-party brands, they're still double, if not triple the price of some brands in CFX Type B. I don't understand why Sony is sticking to this for the next generation, because keep in mind, like I said, cameras have to exist for 3 years on the market. A9 III just got announced and it's still using CFX Type A. The Sony Burano is using CFX Type B. They are totally open to using CFX Type B somewhere in their world. Why are they doing it? Purely because of size. They want to keep their cameras small. And I do actually like the idea that one slot could be one of two memory cards, either SD or CFA, but I just don't like CFA. I think it's expensive, it's slower, it's less capacity. What are we doing here? You know, I think how much longer are Sony users going to be okay with CFX Type A being at the price and performance caps that it's at? I don't know. Told me, and I don't think, based on who they are, I believe them, that there is a possibility of getting CFX Type A up to a terabyte. It's a fable, it's a myth right now, but if it becomes a reality, I could see Sony totally throwing bank at that. If you want to do 8K video, you're going to want a lot of space on that card, trust me. 8K video is a memory chewer. It is bananas, all right? I think they're going to start looking at their cinema line again. You know, they also have a cinema line. That's something Nikon doesn't have, is a cinema line. So they keep on trying to backdoor. So there you go. Sony going to take a look at their cinema line. And they did. The Sony Burano came out, right? So we're looking at a camera that is basically matching the Venice at a lower price point. They totally went to it. I was right on that as well. I'm kind of killing it, guys. I'm not going to lie. This Z9 in as a cinema camera, but it's really not a cinema camera. The A9 III, okay. I personally think the A9 III is the camera for them to put out. And the reason I say that is an A1 Mark II isn't the answer. You need a lower resolution speed demon for your journalists, for your sports guys, for your pros that are out there doing events. You need it for the people that are out there in the world shooting in. Okay, so I totally called the A9 III, but totally didn't see the global shutter. So, and I bet you I didn't see the global shutter because I even then didn't think it was ready for prime time. Like there would be some caveats to it. So yeah, I'm glad the A9 got an update. What I would have loved to have seen Sony do with the A9 is put out two versions. A $4,500 stack sensor with some maybe extra resolution or something to boost it up from the A9 II, because the A9 II is getting a little long out in the tooth out there. But also, if you really want to put out a global shutter, put out an A9 IIIG where a working pro doesn't have to find that $1,500 price jump, right? I think that it's a little bit much to swallow for working pros to have to pay for a technology they might not have even asked for just to upgrade or, refresh their gear. That said, that's why I think people are going to start buying A9 IIs new and kind of shelving them if they're not in it for the global shutter. Because keep in mind, you buy two A9 IIIs because you're a pro and you need two bodies. That's $3 extra grand you got to find on top of the what you were used to spending in that lineup. A little bit hard to swallow, but Sony users might be psyched on being on the next technology, and that's fine. It just feels like they could have done this camera two ways and done a twin release, in my opinion. But I'm sure they were just like, we did global, check it out. And they were super hyped, and I totally understand that. I just don't know. I think there's a big question mark on how much of a market there really is for that global A9 III, and we're going to find out, uncontrollable lighting conditions. The A9 II has been aging out there, and the A9 III would absolutely sell and upgrade in a pro path. They should do it. What I'm going to tell you is, based on what I'm hearing from brands here, it doesn't sound like there's a plan for it. It does. Okay, so what probably happened there is it was so hushed up from being global, right? So maybe that's what was going on. Doesn't sound like there is that, I think. And keep in mind, some of those pros are going to buy 2 of those bodies at a time. It's not going to be just like, oh, I upgraded my body. Like, no, they're going to buy 2 A9 IIIs, you know? So it's its own part of the market. Nikon does not have this. They don't have a lower res Speed Demon. They don't have a lower res Z9 that's out there. Canon's is a $6,000 body. Little did I know that Sony's was going to be a $6,000 body. Kind of puts it in perspective, doesn't it? Was the R3 overpriced? I don't know, but they definitely dropped $1,000 off of it just now. So, you know, when the A9 original came out, Sony wasn't established in the market for pros yet, and they put it out at a $5,000 price point, and it didn't sell, and within a couple months, they dropped it to $4,500. And now it's basically a camera that can be around the $4,000 price range and just be a Speed Demon. And I think they absolutely 100% should put out an A9 III. Will they? I don't know. I hope they do. It's a healthy camera for the market. It'll definitely help things out. Well, they definitely did. We just didn't see it coming out global. Do you guys feel that the A9 III kind of feels like not even a next generation A9, that it's its own different camera? Because I kind of feel that's kind of the sentiment a little bit, is that while it has the speed and all that the A9's kind of founded on, and the A9 itself was the pioneer for stacked sensors, right? So maybe it does fit in that regard, but do you guys in the chat feel that the A9 III is kind of its own thing? I don't know. So I hope that's it. Any thoughts on the A7C II or C version cameras like the A7R, A7S? I don't think the A7C sold enough. I don't think it did that great. I think sold okay, this is going to sound warped, but hear me out and think about it for a second. The A7C is almost like them trying to do a ZFC. They're going for like an aesthetic type camera rather than a performance type camera. Okay, so I was wrong on this one. They totally put out an A7C2, and I think the how do they call it? The A7CR, right? They put out those two. So I don't know. Did people go out and did anybody in this chat pick up one? Because I don't know. I think it's more a camera for people that don't feel like they need something so serious and they just want to be like a carry around kind of camera. But it's still, I think that A7CR is still like $3,000, man. So it's not a toy, that's for sure. The A9, you guys are basically saying that the A9 III is a demonstrator, not a product ready for pros. A9 III is its own thing. Yes. A9 III is in a weird limbo to me. Not enough res, but the speed for wildlife. A lot of people probably going to dial back the frames per second to deal with the culling, but it's not a camera for me. So what do I know? Yeah, I mean, look, it's an unknown, and I don't think people are going to jump at $6,000 without it being out there for a little while and people really seeing what the files are looking like. You know. That being said, it's like, well, where does Sony go from here, right? Is there an A1 II coming out? I don't think so. And they are releasing firmware for the A1 in spring. So what's the messaging there? Hey, we're updating this firmware, but buy the next one. I just don't see it. I don't think the A1 II is this year. I do think we might see, and I know this is going to blow some minds, if there was ever a camera to put a global shutter in, it's the A7S IV. Hear me out. 12 megapixels. That is significantly less information than the A9 III. No rolling shutter for video? Are you kidding me? All those pan shots not being jello? it would be the way to go. The only thing I don't know is the A7S series has always been about low light and being able to handle really clean imaging in low light situations because they're 12 megapixel cameras. If the global shutter has issues with noise in the image, is that the thing that stops them from doing a global shutter in an A7S IV? Will we see that this year? Oh, man, I don't know. The question I have for you guys in the chat is, with all the information and hype around the A9 III's global shutter, what would you say if there is no other global shutter camera that comes out from them for a while? If the A7S IV isn't global, if the A1 II isn't global, if the A7R series isn't global, will you be open to hearing them kind of walk back all that talk of, we need global shutter, this is the next, look how much we get from it, it does the impossible? They're gonna have to be able to sell both technologies, right? What I question the global shutter for the rest of the Sony lineup is in the fact that we did not see any other stacked sensors in the Sony lineup except for the A1. A9 came out with stacked sensor, A9 II came out, A1 came out with stacked sensors. You did not see a stacked sensor come out for the A7 IV. In fact, it had a slower rolling shutter, right? Slower readout. You didn't see stacked sensor in the A7R series. You didn't even see it in the A7C series. So, like, are they just going to keep it in those realms of A9, A1 are the newer sensor technologies, right? I don't know. What do you guys think in that chat? You guys are totally frozen. I know that this is getting a little long. I apologize. I'm sure nobody's watching this in playback. That said, it's still great that they're pushing the envelope. I just think that we've always seen Sony go first and then the other brands release it when they feel it's refined. We didn't see a stacked sensor from Canon or Nikon for like 3 years after a stacked sensor. So I can't get past Sony's insistence on the CF Express Type A. Yeah, I wonder how far they're going to take that. What I think is going to mitigate the CFA is they're going to put bigger buffers inside the cameras, which will raise the price of the camera itself, but they're already raising the price of the camera for the newer technology. So is it really that big of a deal if you're already preparing to pay the higher end for the higher end technology, right? Or the newer technology, I should say, right? Unless they have some rabbit in a hat that somehow CF Express Type A gets way faster and can carry way more capacity out of nowhere, I just don't know how far it'll go as far as a memory format for this industry. The fact that the Burano, their cinema camera, takes CF Express Type B tells me that maybe they're going to, at some point, lean into CFB one day, but that would mean they're going to change a lot about the cameras, the ergonomics, the size of the cameras. A lot of things are going to change. I just don't think it's going to happen right now. You don't even want 61 megapixels. 61 megapixels is a lot. And I think people just get drunk over spec numbers sometimes, you know, and it happens, and that's fine if you just like buying the most or whatever. Like, but for me, 61 megapixels, you start diminishing all that resolution as soon as you close down the aperture, because your light has a phenomenon called diffraction. So if I start losing detail from closing down the aperture, what am I dealing with 61 megapixels and dealing with the problems of 61 megapixels where I have noise in my high ISOs, I have slower frames per second, I'm eating up memory cards, the size of the files, all buffer issues, all sorts of stuff. I don't know. So Luis is saying he would love a stacked A7 IV, would also like a larger body. I think you're not going to see larger bodies. They have what they call their 5 principles, and number 3 or somewhere in there is size. They aim to make things smaller. That's the philosophy of the brand, and some people love that about Sony, right? They love that they can pack a lot of stuff into a smaller case. I totally get it. The A7 IV, I think, needs, if there's an A7 V, definitely needs a faster sensor. I don't know if they're going to do stacked because that will exponentially raise the price of that camera. And the A7 series, like the A7 III and the 4, have always been the price warrior, right? $2,000, $2,500. Would you buy an A7 IV for $3,500 at 33 megapixels if it was stacked? Would you pay that price, right? Think about it. You know, a Z8 is $4,000. An XH2S, which is stacked 24 megapixel crop sensor for Fuji, is just south of $3,000 for crop sensor. Now imagine full frame. Would you pay that price for stacked sensor? You know, it's the question, right? It's not just can they make it, it's will it sell? That's the thing. You know, so it's what it is. And that's pretty much my last year's predictions. I was pretty good on most of them. Not bad. I did all right. Guys. You know, this year, we'll see if I was right. I don't know. I think it's going to be a huge year for everyone. Yeah. For me, okay, so the reason I didn't jump into Sony wasn't just because I was primarily shooting Nikon and DSLR. It was also, at the time, the Sony grip was killing me. My fingers were getting stuck between the grip and the lens. I didn't like the EVFs at the time. This was like right before Gen 3 into Gen 3. I didn't really like the EVFs. They were having battery issues. Then they solved it on going forward with the A7R3 was, I think, the camera that started looking like a viable option. But at that time, I was like, you know what? I'll just get an FTZ adapter, take all my Nikon glass over to the Z series. And then when I find a camera in the Z series that can give me what the D850 was giving me, I'll just be all in the Z series. And I'm rocking a Z9 now. I like the Z6 II a lot. I probably will end up getting a Z6 III, depending on what it is when that comes out. But, you know, Sony just didn't, when I picked up the camera, started using it, it just wasn't my kind of tool. That said, still a great tool, just wasn't the one that was speaking to me. And that's the most important thing, is you have to want to use the gear. And I'm with Marcus on that one. He's saying what killed him was the hot shoe. All my stuff is, you know, standard shoe stuff, my triggers, my speed lights, all that stuff, my grip, even things that just go into my shoe that hold the camera sometimes is for a standard shoe. I wasn't into the digital shoe because I'm not powering a microphone, and that's pretty much what it's for, you know? So it's, it is what it is. Seth, question for you. Hey, what's up, Hans? How you been, man? You think Canon can still be a sponsor for the Olympics? What makes you say otherwise? I'm curious. Canon's massive, man. Canon is massive. Huge resources at that company. Huge. You only see the tip of the iceberg of what that company does. Really. Help me decide ZF or wait for Z6 III. The ZF is a very capable camera, but it is absolutely a style choice. If you are looking for more of a workhorse, straightforward camera, you're going to want to get modern controls and not have dials and cute styles and stuff like that. And also micro SD as the second card slot. Are you okay with that? Personally, if it's for something serious, I would lean into waiting just to see what the Z6 III is. And I'm telling you, in my opinion, I really don't think you're going to be waiting too long. I think we're going to see Q1 some rumblings about what's going on with the Z6 III for sure. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope this was fun for you guys. Seth, what lens would you like to see in 2024? I'll tell you, I think we've seen a lot of great glass. I'm really glad Nikon has put out the 1.2s. I would love to see the Z mount get a stubby 14 or 16 millimeter 2.8, similar to what the R mount has. I think they definitely need some kind of like just stubby prime that I can chuck in my bag and always have it on me. But the cool thing about glass is there could be endless variables. You know, who would have thought we would have seen some of the lenses we saw from Tamron and the 24 to 105 2.8 from Canon? I mean, the 28 to 70 f2 from Canon, just weird lenses. I'm here for it. Give me all the weird lenses, man. And I do think we're going to see some tilt shift lenses soon. We're already seeing tilt shift lenses from the Fujifilm for the GFX. Whew. The 35 1.2 for Nikon, I'm sure is coming. I just don't know when. It's been on the roadmap for a while, though. All right. Whew. This was a lot, guys. I've been streaming for over 2 hours, talking to no one for 2 hours. Not that you're no one, but you're no one. Okay, look. You're a figment of my imagination. You're just imaginary friends. Look at the Nikon 85 1.2. What about it? I did the video for the 85 1.2 on Adorama, and I own it because as soon as I tried it, I bought it. It was just, I was like, this is awesome. I want it. I probably am going to get the Plena, but I'm not in any rush to get that lens. I have to pay off this Z8 that I'm buying this week first. Ugh. Ugh. The stubby Trinity for Nikon 2840 and an 80. I don't know about that. I don't know about that. Happy holidays to you almost. Happy holidays. Whew, man. This was a lot. This was a lot, man. My brain is killing me. Yeah, I'm going to get the Z8 Patty. Mainly, my Z9 it needs a secondary body, and I don't want to buy another Z9. I don't want to spend Z9 money. So I flipped a few old gear laying around, and I'm comfortable with how much I'll be paying for a Z8. That said, I also will probably look to get a Z6 III and just stash that at my studio. So no matter what, I always got another camera, but a secondary camera, because my GFX, as much as I love this camera, it's like you're either shooting with this or you're shooting with this. You're not doing, they don't match too well if you're doing a job like that. Sometimes what I do is I shoot black and white on the GFX and color on the Nikon. And that's kind of how I mix it together for like a one subject kind of job. But I wanted a second body, and then the Z8 just kept making more and more sense. All my lenses work with it. It's way less cost. It does all the stuff I want it to do. It's going to have that pro support that Nikon's giving to the Z9. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going into this, you know. I don't like big bodies like the size of the Z6. The Z6 is small, but actually I have one right here. I did have one right here. Oh. It has I have a thing on it. Hang on, let me get this off. A Z6 is cute, but like when you're shooting a whole day, it's another one of these tiny body things. So it's a nice size to stash in my bag when I'm not doing like a full-on kit and I just need to make sure I have something on me to do something with. But to do a full-on job with, like, it's a little, you know, it's got that whole thing. I have big hands, dude, like, but I'll say this, even if it's small, I still have room on the grip between the lens and the grip. Smaller cameras, my fingers get jammed up all day, and I hate shooting like that. So I'll give that to Nikon. All right. So any last words, kids? Because I am fried. If you're new to this channel, please hit subscribe. I am trying very hard to get this channel. I would like to get to 50,000. I would like to end the year at about 36, hopefully. You know, do you think... Wait, what? Do you think there are bit depth improvements on the horizon? I know that's why a lot of folks migrate to medium format, but it seems like a golden opportunity instead of shoving more megapixels. Well, the problem with bit depth is it's a lot of information that most people will not utilize. I don't care what people say. Without having the monitors for it, the human eye detecting it, the people shooting medium format are doing that type of work, right? They're doing shooting paintings or something. They're doing reference work. They're doing high-end commercial. Like, yes, 16-bit is nice to have. Trust me, I'm with you. I hear you. I got you. But I think for the majority of people, it's going to be something they shove into cameras that'll end up raising the price, that you'll need bigger memory cards for all that information. It'll eat up buffers. I just don't see it being something they throw into cameras casually below a certain price point, and they need the lower price points to sell to masses. So I think it's tough. That's why I think if you're looking for that type of image quality, you're jumping into medium format if you're looking for that level. And most people are shoving onto Instagram, and you are not seeing 16-bit on Instagram, okay, kids? Hate to tell you this. All right. Whew, man. If you're new here, check out the Discord. The link is in the description. And if you're super new here, please do me a favor and hit subscribe. I would really like to grow this channel. I can't thank you guys enough for sharing it around. Okay, let's talk about this. Michael Reese, will camera makers ever make just a still camera again? Let's do this. Okay, let me stretch for this one. Oh, let me stretch. Hang on. Let me just, get a little bit of the, yeah, okay. This question needs to stop. I'm going to tell you this in the most loving way, Michael, because I'm sure you didn't really mean it like this, but the reality is if you are shooting mirrorless, you are already shooting video. That running image to your eye in the EVF, those electronic frames per second, 20 frames per second, you're shooting video, just higher res video. So if you put out a camera that has the ability to process that much imaging and you don't give it video capability, you are not selling that camera because you actively just took out the ability. Hey, Leica does. You want to pay $9,000? There's Leicas that do just stills. So when people go like, oh, I don't want to pay this much money for cameras because I don't need video, I got news for you. You're paying less for cameras than you ever have before. In fact, look at flagships. Let's take Nikon, for example. Nikon D6. $6,500 camera that's doing, 20 megapixels at lower frame rates than a Z9 that's giving you 46 megapixels, 20 frames per second RAW, 14-bit RAW, and 8K 60 frames per second raw video internal. It is a method of thinking that you're basically saying, why did we go into mirrorless, if I'm being honest? So since you're already doing video, you just give video features. That's it. The only time you're paying more for video features if there's something placating to that video feature. For example, the Panasonic S5 Mark II X, you pay more for because it can record video to the SSD drive out of the camera, right? Or the R5C, you're paying more because there's cinema functionality in it, including an active running fan to make it cooler. So we got to get off this idea that somehow you're being scammed, but because there's video functionality in there. And if you want to be relevant in this era where you want to be at all gaining clients as a working professional, you need to learn video. Do you think I got into stills thinking I'd have to learn how to do this? Do you guys have any clue? I came from like hardcore darkroom, poisoned by chemicals, shooting slide film. You think I ever thought I'd have to learn about 4K anything? So, yeah. Just think of it like that. If anything, you're shooting stills at a level you couldn't even comprehend right now, what you're able to get. Oh my God, Blix. Oh man. Bleach Fix was some evil stuff, man. Blix was, man. You know, I always thought Blix would be a cool name for a dog, you know? Whatever. All right, well, listen, I hope you guys have a lot of fun next year shooting whatever gear you've got. I hope that you don't get discouraged by anything that's being said out there. I am going to be at Imaging USA in Louisville, Las Vegas for WPPI, and I will be in St. Louis for Shutterfest. I have classes at all three, and I will be at the booth I will be at Adorama's booth at Imaging and WPPI doing demos as well if you can't get into my classes. So I started when you had to pull the reel out of the developer and expose it to the E3, E6 I got poisoned by E6 processor actually. I got selenium toner poisoning in my bones going up to my elbows. I got selenium toner, and I got not C41. Yeah, C41. I got poisoned by the paper process because there's like formaldehyde or arsenic in the processing there. Ilfochrome, I used to process Ilfochrome. That was not a fun time, but the prints were amazing. Cibachrome, when you make positive prints with black paper from a slide, I have one print still sitting in a frame on my wall that survived all of that. That said, I will be doing a live stream from Adorama in January at some time. I don't know. I can't remember what date it is, but I got to come up with a topic to shoot, to teach or whatever. I don't know. Cibachrome is gorgeous. If anybody ever gets oh my God, Omar, really? I'm 2.5 hours deep and you show up, man. If you guys don't know Omar, he's got a great channel, a lot to learn from this guy, and a very positive attitude. I like his videos a lot. Go check out Omar Gonzalez Photography's channel. He does a lot of Nikon, Fuji, Sony, and he did a good video on the GR3, I'll say that, and it got me thinking about which one I wanted to get, and now I'm thinking I'm going to get the GR4. But, man, I am fried. I have no voice left. Omar shows up at the end. You got to love this guy. Omar is going to be my guest on Coffee with Creators, by the way, January 3rd. Omar is going to be a guest. I just realized that. This is how Friday I am right now. Whew. All right. Last questions. No whammy, no whammy, no whammy. Last call, guys. Last call. All right. This was a long one. If you're watching this back on playback, thank you so much. Let me know you watch this because I can't imagine anyone is. This is probably going to kill my channel. But this is probably my last video for the year. And I will see you guys on this channel in January. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I guess follow me on all the stuff. I don't know. Last X Witness on everything. And join the Discord. Say what's up. Share some work. Ask some questions. And please share this channel around. I would love to grow this channel to at least 50K. If I can get it to 100, then that'd be great. Anyway, guys, have a great holiday. Let's have an amazing 2024. And yeah, man, I am out of here, guys. I just want to take a shower. I've been drenched in the rain all day, and I'm free. I'm like, I just feel so grimy and just ugh. Anyway, be good to each other, guys. Take care. Later.